What's up, guys? Hope everyone is doing well. In this video, I'm going to be going over Bitcoin, giving some updates on where it could be going over the next few weeks, number of months. But before I get into that, I want to go over a quick update here for the total market value. And what I want to point out here is if we zoom in and we look here, we've been seeing it move up the market value since September. I mean, really since August. So really August, September of this year. We then started to see Bitcoin move from, well, rather, this is the total market value, moving from around 2.25 trillion up to 3.35 trillion, so a little over a trillion. And market value has been gained since basically the beginning of November. So it's been about, basically a month, and about a trillion, a little over a trillion has been added to the market value. You see these high volume vector candles, specifically the white ones. And we see this yellow one right here. This was the last weekly candle closed yellow. As you can see, the current one is white, but this yellow candle could really, it's kind of twofold. As you can see back here, there was one here, and the price continued just to go higher. But at the same time, the yellow candles denotes a lesser quantity of volume associated with the performance of the candle than the white does. So this could, again, it could also be indicating that it will continue to go higher, but it could also be indicating that the volume is dying down. Because the current candle is white, at least currently is, there's still 5 days left in this current weekly candle. But assuming this one is white, it stays white, this could ultimately just be signaling that it's going to continue to go higher rather than see like a notable correction in the sense that like one weekly or two, maybe even 3 weekly candles will be red, or so basically would retrace anywhere down to around 2.86 to around 2.26 trillion in order to reclaim this vector or volume zone. The midpoint sits at around like just approximately 2.5 trillion. That's the 50% rule. It's only necessary that 50% of these vector zones be reclaimed, and at this point I don't think it's going to come down to these. So approximately 2.5 trillion could be a very reasonable and viable place to retrace. Again, I think it's going to go anywhere from around 10 to 16 trillion. Might go a tad bit lower than the 10, but I think if it goes any higher, if it deviates higher than 16 trillion, it could push maybe 18 to 21 trillion at highest, sometime within the first half of next year, roughly, or just right along mid next year, maybe give or take a few months. Moving into the 6-hour chart here for Bitcoin, we can see so far the price has done what I was saying and moving and performing very similar, and like how I was saying the last time I went over Bitcoin, where I was saying, and I believe it was somewhere, I think it was like 10, I don't know, roughly pushing 2 weeks ago. So I think it was somewhere right here in this zone where I was saying we're going to see Bitcoin kind of just slowly and gradually build itself up here, very similar to what it's been doing, which ultimately, just to go back and show it, is what it did last time. We can see that actually Bitcoin here moved from 25k, we see down here, breaks 30k, and then as it's doing that, it starts to just slowly waver up here. We see this move again, it's just wavering slowly, gradually towards the upside. And you can see that this peak right here was around mid-November, and if we go back to where we are currently, you can see that we have made this peak right here November 22nd. So it's not exactly mid-November, but it's about 10 days behind, 11 days behind. The prior one topped out at around like November 11th or so last year. So we're seeing not only the similarity in the price action wavering upwards, but we're seeing this initial wavering right here. Again, to go back here, we see initial wavering. We see this kind of a little bit more of a sizable move towards the upside. Then it comes down, which is actually the most substantial retracement really in this entire movement right here in this portion of time. And we can actually see that this retracement, since the price looks so similar, really so many things look so similar this time around, that retracement was around 8.5%. If we take our retracement here and it does something similar, then the price would come down to around like $91.2, $91.5 thousand approximately, really to kind of reclaim all of what's left of this very tiny vector zone, which would be the entire, basically reclaim this, have a successful reclaiming of this move right here. It's still definitely possible to see it come down to 80 to around 84,000. Again, this vector zone of these two candles. There's this small one right here that I'm not going to mention, and I still think it's definitely possible. that we see Bitcoin come back down, maybe even down here to as low as around like approximately 69,000 to 74,000, and maybe just solidly retest this descending resistance again and really flip it into support. It somewhat, I would say, for all intents and purposes, already did it back here, but I definitely think that's on the table, and I do still think what is most likely is that we're going to just continue to see, if I can actually click the highlighter, we'll just continue to see Bitcoin waver here and the upside within an ascending range, and then it'll finally make one big leap towards anywhere from around, I think, $110,000 to $145,000 approximately. Right now, I'm thinking somewhere around January, February. We'll see how that plays out. Obviously, I have no idea what's going to actually happen, but we move in here to the daily. Again, really just kind of just further affirms. We see the 50, as I was already talking about. This has moved above the 200. Last time this happened was the beginning back in October, November 2023. This second impulse here for Bitcoin after the first being back here. Now I believe we're on the third impulse. We've, like I said, saw the 50 above the 200. We saw the 100 here, the orange SMA above the 200 as well. This is also, again, further confirmation. This actually crossed right when this local high back here, mid-November 2023 was set, and this also happened not exactly along with it, but basically roughly at the same period since Bitcoin's been around like 90 to 100K approximately. So again, we're all seeing similar time frames, similar literal, like the structural movement of the way the price is moving looks the same, or at least it's very, very similar. If we move here to, is this, yeah, actually, let me last before I get into the 2-day. Looking here at the vector candles, we also have a zone here from around 77.3 up to around 89.6. There's also one down here, which actually would just go down to around like 68K at lowest. So again, and this lowest one also as well, just kind of, like I said, this would basically sign it with Bitcoin potentially retesting this resistance here again and then flipping it into support and going upwards. But like I said, I don't personally think that's the most likely at this point, but it's definitely on the table. If we look here at the 2-day, so if we look here down at the RSIs, I was pointing this out in the last video when I went over this. We see resistance RSI here, resistance of the RSI here. RSI broke it as it here as well. Then we see the RSI move up to around 78 along this purple trend, this horizontal line, and we see also a pink rejection dot printed literally at the exact same level, basically. Yeah, but not even basically, it's literally at the exact same level at around 82.9, so 83. We're seeing this rejection here. It's going below. It's going below the green, the moving average buddy of the RSI itself. And so far the RSI has gone a little bit lower than it did last time, but I mean, nonetheless, it's still looking highly, highly similar here. We're seeing the breakout of the price as well of its consolidation ranges. So I think, again, just further pointing to the fact that we might very well be seeing something very similar. Essentially, if we end up seeing a very similar, so like I said, this is the second impulse, and we're on the third impulse as it's going potentially towards 170 to 230K approximately. We could see a very similar structure here where we're going to, as you see right here, essentially where we are right here currently. So let's say maybe by, I would say January, February, yeah, of next year, we could see Bitcoin entering this kind of mid portion overall, this impulse here, where we'll basically see, as I've been saying a lot recently, we might see something, my goodness, I don't know why TradingView does this. I clearly click on something and it just doesn't click it. But anyways, we'll see here this first initial move of the ABC pattern. Then we'll kind of maybe hit, I don't know, somewhere around 120K, approximately, give or take $10,000. Retrace down, maybe even as low to like low 90K right here. And then eventually kind of go up here towards, maybe 230K at highest. So ultimately just a massive ABC pattern, just like it's done each of these times in the past with the first impulse and the second impulse, where, as I've been saying, we see this in this kind of bridging this middle portion of the price action looking like a megaphone pattern. We see the same thing here as well. So we could see something like that happen again as well. we look here at the, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but the vector candles on this 2-day also come down to the 68K at lowest. So again, could still definitely see a retest all the way down to there as well. But I mean, we also could just come down to like, I don't know, maybe approximately 93K or so, which is, if you obviously can already gather what I think is more likely, but it, obviously doesn't mean it's going to happen. On the 4-day here, we can see, again, we see the double tops here. We see this bottoming out period. Then the price it starts to go upwards. It flips from being bearish, going bullish. We're getting these impulses here. And we're seeing here this horizontal, or this vertical line rather, lines up with basically the final week of October, where we can see this is the first time that the price was finally hitting this trend zone again. And we see the same thing happened here also towards the end of October, beginning of November, where we see the price come up to it. And the main thing that I want to update for this chart is the fact that zooming in here, we can see that there is this yellow vector candle here printed currently where we are at what could potentially be a local high. So this could potentially be a yellow vector candle at a local high, which would be signaling the volatility is kind of dying down a bit, and maybe we'll see a retestment, not a retestment, but a retracement all the way down, like I said, to as low as like approximately 68, 69K, but it also could just, go anywhere higher than that. It may not even go down anymore, as well as like what I was pointing out on that 6-hour chart, maybe just a tad bit more, but not really much at all, especially if we're if Bitcoin's going to continue to waver upwards here, very similar to how it did back here. I mean, let's say it does something similar, if I take a rough fractal pattern from around, I'll start right here and go here and kind of just maybe roughly put it along, move it back one more, and let's say to smooth it up to put it like at a rough median at around like 215K, which kind of lines up with where these candles are right now. Maybe we'll just continue to see it slowly build up. We'll see kind of a nice jolt here up towards that 130K, sit here in that sideways action as I was pointing out, and then so basically ultimately it is kind of looking like where we see one major move up, and we see a correction, and we see the final leg overall end up playing out, which would mean that likely as this progresses, and assuming it continues to look somewhat similar to what I'm painting here, we'll see this trend zone potentially act as a support as well as the price continues to further. To look here at this 2-week chart, what I want to point out here is on this RSI, the RSI is just recently breaking above the Bollinger Bands. Last time this happened also goes back to end of October, beginning of November 2023, as Bitcoin was beginning here, the second impulse. So next thing to see is to see the moving average buddy here of the green line of the purple RSI get above the Bollinger Band median, this white line. Once that happens, it'll further solidify, seeing the price continue to go higher. Right now it sits at around the 786 to the 1.89. If we go back last time, let's see that if we look here during this phase 1W pattern, the iteration below it, so just the 0.89 when the price was here, also close to the all-time highs, similar to right now, but obviously a little bit above it. Price broke out very much so. Same thing basically happened back here at this 0.89, at this 1.89, 1.786. This was kind of just the final strut, the final leg in this bull market of 2015 to 2017. So we could be seeing something very similar to that. And as I've been saying, so when in this video I've been talking about like 170K, so not 230K, that is stemming from many things, but really a large part of it is because of these Fibonacci extensions you see here on this chart. So if we go back to what we see here, all the far left, this is the beginning of cycle 2 for Bitcoin. This entire portion right here that this extension's overlaid upon, this is phase 1 right here. And then this right here is phase 2. You can see that phase 1 topped out within this orange range. It's very close to the 2.272 is basically, if you average out each of one of these orange ranges, it averages out to 2.272. Which I believe I have on here. Let me go ahead and put all of these on. And actually, I'm going to get rid of all these other orange ones. It's actually averages out to 2.278, but I say 2.272 because that's the Fibonacci extension, and 2.278 is clearly close enough to basically just call it the 2.272 extension. So we see here, price hits that, you know, just approximately like $1,200 here, somewhere around 17, but obviously it went up to around 20K. So you can see here, phase 1 tops out 2.278, approximately. Phase 2 here tops out 2.278. This is finishes cycle 2. And then we fast forward here to cycle 3. We're looking at phase 1. Where did phase 1 top out last time? Approximately to 2.278, which sits at approximately 215,000. And then if I were to bring back each of these other orange ones and get rid of the average, it points to around 180K up to basically approximately 250K, but I think 170K to 230K is a little bit more reasonable. Then, you know, obviously 180K and 170K are basically the same price, but I think I think at highest 250K is where it could go, but I think 230K is a little bit more reasonable for reasons I've gone over, according to technical analysis and other reasons as well. Look here at this 2-week chart. What I want to point out on here is that currently there's nothing really new on the RSI here. It's still breaking above the median of the Bollinger Bands, which is great, but if you look here at the price, you can see that the price is sitting just a tad bit above, but right along this median. You can see that it was crucial rejection back here in 2019, crucial rejection back here in 2024 March recently, where we went sideways for 9 months, ultimately ended up going upwards. I mean, basically ultimately ended up going upwards after this rejection, but this is the median. Medians are very important in the, you know, ascending, horizontal, descending channels. The middle portion is obviously going to be very important. It's going to be a lot of times where you see it flip. Like, for example, if you look here at Bitcoin distribution period, you know, we have this bear market flipped, and then we kind of see this accumulation period right here. We see something very similar to back here as well. We see this flip here, and then we see this final dump at the bottom portion. So, I mean, there's potentially room to find rejection here, which, you know, goes back to this 4-day, the 2-day, and the lower time frames when I was mentioning a potential rejection to as low as around 68K. And 68K would obviously, I mean, let's try to get a fractal here to maybe see something like, maybe not take this long right here, but maybe we'll see something along these lines, and that doesn't even actually go down to 68K. Maybe we'll see something like this, and we'll kind of see this retracement down here. Then it'll just, again, blow right back upwards over 100K. And again, like I said, I don't think that's what's most likely at this point, but it, as I've been saying, is definitely on the table. Lastly, if you look here at this 3-week chart, the only thing I want to point out here is if you look here at the RVI, we can see that it's right below, basically right on top of the upper Bollinger Bands. Last time we were in a similar place to this would be back in October, late October, early November 2023. As I was pointing out, this same time period on the early charts, we're seeing the breaking of the resistance. Like I said, the RVI breaks above, and then the second impulse began right here, and we're seeing the same thing happen all over again a year later during the exact same like 2-3 month time span. So I mean, will we see something very similar? I think it's more likely than not in the most likely scenario, but as I have been saying, going over throughout this video, definitely could be different. We definitely could see that retracement down to around 68K at lowest. But that was all that I wanted to go over and talk about in this video. As always, none of this is meant to be financial advice, but all that being said and everything gone over, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Ooh, I regret now, won't I see you forever, such a long